The truth, it doesn't wear makeup. It doesn't pretend to be perfect. It doesn't chase validation, nor does it try to fit into anyone's expectations. And yet, undeniably powerful, undeniably attractive. You see, in a world that thrives on filters, fakery, and facades, the truth stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. It doesn't need to scream, it just is, and people can feel it. People are drawn to it, not always because they like it, but because deep down, we respect it. Truth has a silent confidence. It walks into a room without needing approval. It doesn't chase applause. It commands it. And you know why? Because truth is rare. And whatever is rare becomes valuable. Most people spend their lives running away from the truth about who they are, about what they want, about who they love, or even who they've become. But the few who embrace it, they glow differently. They don't play roles, they own their story, messy chapters and all. That kind of authenticity is unforgettable. You want to know what's truly attractive? A woman who doesn't fake a smile to please. A man who doesn't say what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. A soul that refuses to dim its light to blend in. Truth doesn't manipulate. It doesn't sugarcoat. The most captivating presence in any room isn't the one with the loudest voice, the most perfect face, or the most rehearsed smile. It's the one who carries truth within them silently, gracefully, and unapologetically. You feel them before they speak. You respect them before they try. That's the power of truth. It doesn't have to beg for attention. It doesn't need validation. It radiates confidence without effort. We've been conditioned to believe that confidence comes from appearance, achievements, or dominance. But real confidence is born from alignment when who you are, what you believe, and how you live are in sync. That alignment comes from truth. And truth has its own frequency. It doesn't shout. It doesn't compete. It simply exists. And when you're living in truth, you carry a kind of authority that can't be faked. You walk differently, you speak differently, you no longer chase approval, you attract it by simply being. There is something extraordinarily attractive about someone who knows who they are and refuses to shrink for anyone. Not in arrogance, but in grounded self-awareness. That's what truth does, it makes you grounded. You stop floating through other people's expectations, you stop bending just to fit in. You no longer participate in conversations that require you to lie to yourself. You become calm, clear, centered, and that kind of energy is irresistible because while others are performing, you are present. While others are selling illusions, you are embodying substance. Truth is power, but not the kind that dominates, it's the kind that liberates, it sets you free. You no longer need everyone to like you because you like yourself. You no longer beg for loyalty because you've become loyal to your own voice. You stop settling, compromising, and explaining because what you're aligned with now is purpose, not pressure. Have you ever noticed how the people who live in their truth don't compete? That's because they're too busy being. They're not interested in trends or optics or playing roles that exhaust their soul. They speak with intention. They move with clarity. They don't need to say, look at me, you already are. And that's the paradox of truth. The less you try to be something, the more you become everything. The less you seek attention, the more attractive you become, because truth doesn't need makeup, it wears integrity as its glow. And no, truth doesn't always look perfect. In fact, it's often raw, unfiltered, uncomfortable. But that's what makes it beautiful. That's what makes it real. Confidence isn't perfection, it's presence. It's the ability to say, this is who I am, these are my values, this is what I stand for. And even if the whole world walks away, I'm still not moving from my truth. That kind of clarity is magnetic. That kind of courage is unforgettable. The ones who walk in truth don't need to impress you. They don't need to overshare or prove anything. Their silence says more than most people's speeches, because when you live in truth, you realize that you don't need to be understood by everyone. You just need to be at peace with yourself. That peace radiates. It shines through your eyes. It reflects in your decisions. It echoes in your boundaries. It becomes your presence. You begin to see that the most attractive person in the room isn't the one who's trying the hardest, it's the one who's not trying at all. They're just being. Fully, authentically, fearlessly. They're not afraid to be misunderstood because they're not trying to be packaged. They'd rather be real and rejected than fake and praised. That level of honesty is intimidating for some, but to the right people, it's inspiring. It's healing. It's a mirror for what's possible. Because let's be honest, deep down, we all crave that kind of freedom to not hide, to not perform, to not shrink or silence ourselves just to belong. That's why truth is so attractive. It gives people permission to drop the act, permission to reconnect with themselves, permission to let go of what's fake and remember what's real. Living in truth is a spiritual decision. It's not just about what you say, it's about how you live. It's waking up every day and choosing integrity over acceptance. It's choosing alignment over applause. It's choosing inner peace over outer approval. And you will lose people in that process, but you will find yourself. And when you find yourself, you stop looking for wholeness in others. That's when you become magnetic, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. You see, the world has mastered the art of pretending, but people are starving for sincerity. And when you embody truth, you speak straight into the soul. People might not always agree with you, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. You made them feel seen, heard, safe, because you weren't manipulating the moment, you were honoring it. That's confidence. It's not loud, it's anchored. It's not about showing off, it's about showing up. You walk into a room and you don't need to prove anything because you already belong to yourself. And that self-possession, that quiet certainty is what makes truth so powerful. People fall in love with beauty, with charm, with smiles and voices, and the way someone makes them feel in the moment. But they stay in love with truth, with substance, with someone's soul. That's why authenticity builds respect before it ever builds love. Because you can't love someone you don't trust. You can't love someone you don't respect. And you cannot truly be loved if you're hiding behind a version of yourself that was only created to be accepted. Respect is the foundation. It's the soil. Love grows from it. And that's why authenticity is not just attractive, it's essential. Because if love comes before respect, it becomes unstable, conditional, shaky. But when someone respects who you are at your core, the way you think, the way you show up, the way you stand in your truth, they love you, not for what you offer them, but for who you are. And that kind of love is rare. Because most people meet your mask before they meet your heart. Most people fall in love with your potential, your image, or their own projection of you. But authenticity wipes all that away. It says, here I am. No filters, no roles, no perfect storyline, just me. And if someone can stand in front of your truth and still choose you, that's real. That's sacred. But it starts with respect. It starts with you respecting yourself enough to be honest, to not lie to make someone stay, to not become smaller so someone else can feel secure, to not pretend you're okay with things that break your heart. That level of self-respect teaches people how to treat you. It says, I don't need to be liked to be valued. I don't need to be chosen to be whole. I don't need to be everything to everyone to be worthy of love. That is the language of authenticity, and that is the language of respect. When you live authentically, you're no longer available for relationships built on performance. You stop entertaining people who only love you when you're easy to love. You stop begging for attention and start attracting alignment, because when someone respects your truth, they won't ask you to betray it just to keep them around. When someone respects your soul, when someone respects your journey, they'll stand beside you before you become what the world claps for. And that's the secret. Respect is what holds love together when feelings fade, when attraction shifts, when life gets hard. Because respect says, even when I don't understand you, I still honor your voice. Respect says, even when you disagree with me, I still value your truth. Respect says, even when I'm hurt, I won't try to break you down just to feel powerful. This is why authenticity is non-negotiable, because if someone doesn't know the real you, they can't actually love you. They can love the role you play, the version you present, the mask you wear. But none of that will satisfy you, because you'll always wonder, would they still be here if I stopped performing? When you're authentic, you never have to ask that question, because the people who stay are staying for the right reasons, and the people who leave, they're just making room for something real. You don't have to fear rejection. when you're rooted in truth, because the people who reject your truth were already disconnected from it. They were never meant to hold your soul. Real love doesn't ask you to choose between being loved and being yourself. It starts with respect, and respect begins with authenticity, because you cannot be loved for who you are if you never show who you are. And no, that doesn't mean being perfect. That doesn't mean sharing everything with everyone. It just means showing up honestly. It means being consistent. It means being whole. That kind of presence builds trust. That kind of truth earns respect. And when someone respects you deeply, their love doesn't feel like possession. It feels like partnership. They don't want to own you. They want to walk beside you. They don't want to change you. They want to understand you. That's the kind of love that doesn't burn out. That's the kind of love that grows. Because when love is rooted in respect, you don't just admire someone's beauty, you honor their mind. You protect their vulnerability. You listen to their silence. You hold space for their complexity. You love their scars, not just their shine. You see their soul, not just their surface. And it's your authenticity that teaches someone how to do that. It says, this is my past, but it doesn't define me. This is my fear, but I face it. This is my truth, and I stand in it. And in doing that, you invite others to rise to that level of depth. You show them what real connection looks like. You stop settling for chemistry without character, for romance without respect, for affection without intention. So many people walk around pretending to be confident, but you can feel the insecurity behind the performance. Real confidence doesn't overcompensate. It's not aggressive or defensive. It doesn't seek to dominate or diminish. It simply exists in truth, in peace, in purpose. When you stop lying to yourself, your energy shifts. When you stop trying to be what everyone else expects, your light returns. When you stop abandoning yourself to be accepted by people who don't even know who they are, your confidence is reborn. That's the secret, that's the glow, that's the kind of beauty that can't be taught, bought, or faked. Truth is attractive because it's whole. There are no cracks in it, no gaps between who you are and who you pretend to be. And that wholeness, that completion is rare, it's radiant, it's resilient. You no longer need a crowd to validate your worth. You are the confirmation, you are the clarity, you are the calm. And when you reach that level of embodiment, people notice. They may not be able to explain it, but they'll feel something when you speak. They'll trust you without knowing why. They'll respect you even if they don't fully understand you, because truth has its own gravity, its own elegance, its own light. That is the kind of presence that changes rooms. That's the kind of energy that leads not through force, but through truth. Not by controlling, but by inspiring. Not by shouting, but by being. Being real is rare, and rare is powerful. It sounds simple. But in today's world, it's revolutionary, because we live in a time where people curate their personalities like they curate their social media feeds. Everyone wants to be accepted, but very few are willing to be authentic. Everyone wants to be loved, but very few are willing to be seen. And that's where the power lies, in being seen for who you are, not for what you pretend to be. When you decide to be real, you instantly separate yourself from the crowd. Not because you're better than anyone, but because you're not afraid to be. That kind of courage is magnetic. In a room full of copies, the original will always stand out. And the truth is, people might not understand you at first. They may question you. They may distance themselves, but deep down they feel you, because realness has a frequency. It speaks directly to the soul. It cuts through the noise. Being real means you're not afraid to have depth in a shallow world. You're not afraid to say what others only think. You're not afraid to feel deeply when everyone else is numb. And that depth is intimidating. But it's also unforgettable, because you weren't born to blend in. You weren't born to be a watered down version of yourself just to keep others comfortable. You were born to disrupt, to elevate, to embody something so raw and so true that it wakes people up just by being in your presence. And yes, being real will cost you. It will cost you people who only liked you when you agreed with them. It will cost you relationships that required you to shrink. It will cost you the illusion of fitting in. But what you gain is everything. You gain self-respect, you gain peace, you gain the kind of clarity that only truth can bring. And once you taste that kind of power, you'll never trade it again, not for attention, not for affection, not for approval. Because nothing is more exhausting than living a lie, pretending to be okay when you're breaking, pretending to be sweet when you're hurting, pretending to care when you don't. That kind of pretending will rot your spirit. It will drain your soul. And eventually it'll steal your identity. You won't even recognize yourself in the mirror anymore. That's the cost of being liked by everyone. You lose you.